So next up is warming your list. And we've actually covered quite a bit of this up here in these first two when we talked about, the shot across the bow is huge for warming the list. And you saw how some of the emails I sent were, all about being likable. They gave content. So already a lot of that going on. And this just really isn't that complicated. If you want to warm your list, you give them good free stuff. That always works. 2 or 3 pieces of content, no matter how cold the list generally is, if you let a list go cold, and trust me, everyone does it at one time or another and probably repeatedly, might let a list go cold. Well, you can just send them really good content, send 2 or 3 pieces. And the other thing you do is you let them know, if it's been a really long time and the list has gotten really cold, then you have to come back and tell them, give them some reason why. Say, hey, I'm sorry, whatever, I forgot my logins credentials, or obviously I'm joking around there, but just say, hey, I got busy, I had some personal things come up, whatever it is. Give them a reason why, and then say, as a make good, I'm really sorry for not having sent you anything. As a make good, I've got something really awesome for you. Go take a look at the special report or the special video. Give them some content. Don't be afraid to be personal, especially sort of in that apology. If you're giving them the reason why you've let the list go cold. But even if the list hasn't gone cold, just and you're just going along normally, coming up on a pre-launch, it's often good to give a little bit of extra content. And then down here I've got be aspirational. That's if you just tell them a story of someone who achieved something, what in their whatever market or niche you're in, if it's playing guitar or carving wooden dolls or growing tomatoes, you can tell a story of how someone succeeded, especially if they succeeded after they struggled somewhat. Sort of that's the people love to have someone to cheer on, someone that went through some struggles. Boom, that's very easy to be aspirational. And we've got the shot across the bow is just wonderful for creating pre-launch. Sort of the warmth right before the pre-launch. Okay, so now let's talk about your launch. So let's take a look at current assets. Now in module 1 we went through all, sort of an asset inventory for your entire launch. Now we're going to look at current assets as they relate to pre-launch. And we're basically, this is an inventory here, so things you can think about that you might be able to exploit in your pre-launch to get the pre-launch cranking, to get a little buzz going, to warm the relationship with your list, to gather data on your offer, or to gather data on objections, or gather data on a possible launch story. So everything we've talked about in the pre-launch, these are potential assets that could help you. So you have your prospect list, your client or customer lists. Maybe you don't have lists yet, but if you do, those are incredibly powerful for your pre-launch. You might have raving fans. They could be fans for your products, or they could be fans for you. A lot of times when you're starting out, it's easier to have people who are fans of you rather than your products, especially if you haven't put out any products yet. You might have a blog. You could have JVs and affiliates. You saw how I basically used my JVs and got them all excited about getting people excited about me. Social media presence, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, any others. They can be real powerful for creating the initial buzz. I've often used Twitter and Facebook to drop little hints about things that are coming. Forums, preferably forums where you have a presence. You don't want to just all of a sudden go into a forum that no one knows you and start posting stuff about your business. That's spamming the forum. You don't want to do that. So we're talking about forums where you have a presence on. Relationships with mavens, relationships with connectors and persons of influence. They can help you get that pre-launch out. Relationships with top blogs. This is where you could possibly be a guest blogger on a blog, or even if it's a blog where you frequently make comments and you're known on that blog. And then speaking at events, if you have anything scheduled, or if you can get on stage at an event, it can possibly tie into your pre-launch. I talked about how I did that with the Product Launch Formula 3.0. Teleseminars or webinars or other places where you might get interviewed. So these are some of the assets that you might have that could be exploited in a pre-launch. So let's go right down here to the objectives now. And first of all, you have to go back and review what's your launch objective. We covered that in module 1. What do you want from your launch? So before you can figure out what your pre-launch objective is, you have to figure out what the bigger picture is. I think it's really important to get the bigger picture and start to drill down when you're involved in one of these launches. So pre-launch objective could be identify the offer, identify objections, identify the launch story. Could be gather testimonials. You saw how I did that with the testimonial cruncher. Build buzz and warm your relationship with your list, and get JVs and affiliates excited to promote. I would think in almost any pre-launch you would definitely want to build buzz, and you would want to warm the relationship with your list. Those are probably the two most important. Then also identifying your offer and the objections is real key. Often, you're identifying the offer. You'll often, you'll surface those objections. You'll find out what the objections are probably just going through this process, although a lot of times you do that more once you get into a pre-launch. Other things to think about when you're looking at your pre-launch objectives is who do you want talking about your launch? Hopefully it's the persons of influence, the people that can drive you some traffic, and people that will be sympathetic to your launch, that are going to be excited about you. But it's usually those connectors, those mavens, and the persons of influence. And then finally, who do you want buying your product, and how do you reach them? Where do they hang out? If you're going to generate some pre-launch buzz, you don't want it among a bunch of people that will never buy your product, that aren't in your target market. So these are just things to think about as we start to put together the pre-launch plan. So that is the pre-launch. As I mentioned in the intro, this is really powerful stuff. This is people outside of Product Launch Formula don't even know this stuff exists. They think they can look at a launch and reverse engineer what's happening, but they completely miss big, huge chunks of the process, including the pre-launch. This is incredibly powerful. It's how you get the story out there and get people interested in your story, interested in the launch story, interested in the launch before you even go live with your pre-launch. You have them anticipating your pre-launch. You're getting them excited before their BS detector goes into the red zone, before they even feel like they're getting pitched. The shot across the bow is super, super powerful. It's a great way to let people know something's coming and get the anticipation building. Great way to build the early buzz to warm your list, and also help you identify the offer and the objections in the story. So really, really powerful stuff. And you want to put this to use for you in your launch.